I'm going to read a short passage of Matthew to you. We're going to be thinking today about grace at a time of crisis. Grace in a time of crisis. Can you put it up so it's me and it?
Yes.
Thank you. So take it off, solo off.
No, I know. It's going to show all of them.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? So let me just take the others away.
Okay.
Oh gosh, that was so smooth, wasn't it?
Okay, We're going to be thinking about grace at a time of crisis. Let me read to you from Matthew 11. All things have been committed to me by the Father. No one knows the Son except the Father. No one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Wonder what your experience of this part of lockdown is. Wonder how you feel things are going. We are at one of those transition points, aren't we? It's felt like this has been a long, dark tunnel for many of us. And maybe we are coming to see a bit of light at the end of it. So we want to think about what it means to be people that live in and extend grace. I love the Message version of that verse. Can you put that one up for me, please?
Yeah.
It says this: come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And the message of Jesus to all people is that he has what you need. There is forgiveness for the things that you've done wrong in him. There is rest if you're tired and weary and burdened in him. There is reconciliation with other people. There is a restoration of relationship with your Father in him. And the simple message is that that is all a gift, that all you have to do is say yes to receive. And so the simple message of grace is, come to Jesus because he has what you need. And it may be that you're hearing that for the first time today or for the 51st time. It is still an opportunity to come to him, to rest, to receive from him. Come to Jesus. He has what you need. But what we see with those who come to Jesus is that he doesn't just give them what they need. He also invites them to join in with his journey. And so they become people who live out his good news, who give grace to others. In the passage we're reading right now, we're looking at on the screen, he talks about the unforced rhythms of grace, not just receiving something, but learning how to practice it. In our house, there's often a piano being played, and sometimes the piano is being played alongside the metronome, which ticks backwards and forwards in a rhythm, so that the person that's playing can learn how to keep pace. And it's like that. There's rhythms and ways of following Jesus that teach us to keep pace with him, to receive what we need and give it to others. So how are you doing in this stage of lockdown? Despite the difficulty and the hardness, despite the fact that many of us are living with grief and pain, there have been some signs and evidence of grace all around us. It's been brilliant to hear from some of you about the neighbour connections, the times that you've been able to talk with and pray with people in your life about deep issues. It's been great to observe and hear about some of the things happening in our communities and across our gathering. Here are just a few numbers from our lockdown journey so far as Kairos. We are getting about 150 or more views of Central Gathering live each week, not all live at the same time, but people clicking in the week and watching. We just went offline there, and now we're back.
We hope.
And I hope you are as well. So we'll keep going. Yeah, we're getting about 150 people watching, which is expanding our reach of those who connect in with us each week. 50 or 60 or so people are connecting in every week with Kairos Community Zoom calls that are happening Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday in the week. And studying the Bible together and working together. We do daily prayer in the mornings at 9 o'clock in our Facebook group, and we have 30 or so people watching that each day at different times. And people have talked about a sense of going deeper with God and deeper with each other during lockdown, which is really exciting. It feels like God is giving us depth and fresh resources to follow him as a church through hard times. We're learning to come to Jesus and get what we need. We're also beginning to move outward and think about how we can have a bigger impact in the world. God's been stirring us for justice over the last couple of weeks, hasn't he? We've seen Blaze and kids Zooms happening every week, encouraging and discipling young people. Blaze raised £380 for Tear Fund by doing the big climb going up and down the stairs the height of Ben Nevis. Do you remember that? And when we asked you, the church, to listen to God and pray and ask him to respond to our loss in income, you responded by giving £12,000 of kind of one-off giving, which is we're just so grateful for. God's grace has been being poured out on us as a church during this time. As an aside on the giving, it's not too late to give. We will continue to face the loss of hall rent over the last few months and some to come, and we're continuing to focus on pressing forward with getting new doors on the building and employing the kids worker that the kids mission leader we want to grow our mission with young people. So you definitely haven't missed the boat in responding to that call to give if you want to. God's grace is being poured out on us, even in difficult times. And now we move into a slightly different stage of lockdown, perhaps with some new freedoms. And we'll be making the most of some of those. Already, Res Bikes are in the hall and are doing a great job selling bikes to the local community and blessing people that way. We are planning to open the Kairos room this Friday from 2 till 4 for private prayer. And that will continue to be there on Tuesdays and Fridays throughout July at least, probably August as well. And we're beginning to work out how we might get back to physical worship gatherings of some kind at Westcliff Hall. That is coming. It probably won't happen July, but something might happen fairly soon. So there's change as we follow this sense of God's presence and grace and work in us. And it's a good time to stop and think about, what are we doing? What are we called to? How are we living our lives? I've loved the challenge we've been embracing as we've been reading 1 Peter. This ancient letter reaching from one crisis 2,000 years ago, coming to speak to us in our own. If you take that one down, so we're ready for the next one, that'd be great. Speaking to our own times. Telling God's people to stay distinctive, to follow Jesus no matter what, to remain committed to his work as his witnesses. And last week's passage contained this verse: in your hearts, sanctify Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give a defense to everyone who asks you the reason for the hope you possess, but respond with gentleness and respect. Now, I find that quite a big challenge. In your heart, sanctify Jesus as Lord. Always be ready to give a defense to everyone who asks you the reason for the hope you possess. I find that a challenge because sometimes I'm not ready. Sometimes I struggle with words. Sometimes I need to find the right thing to say. But I also find it a challenge because I don't always experience the fact that my life is supposed to provoke change and question and wonder in other people. It doesn't always feel like my life is quite stirring up the kind of wow reaction that I see followers of Jesus in the Bible stirring up. And so I feel the call to come to Jesus and learn his ways. Wonder what you think about your life. I think sometimes we can get really sidetracked from the main thing. And the main thing, as far as I can see it, in this passage is this: to live closely enough to others that our life can be seen and shared, and to live differently enough to others that our life provokes questions. To live closely enough to others that our life can be seen and shared. To live differently enough to others that our life provokes questions. I wonder if you feel that's always what your life is like. Sometimes it can be really easy to get sidetracked from that and live within a bubble that is kind of safe and cozy, our family, our close friends, maybe a Christian bubble. And so we don't get close enough for others to see and share in our life. At other times, might be that we do live closely with others, but actually our distinctiveness gets compromised. Our holiness gets lost a bit. And so we're spending all our time with other people, but actually our life doesn't provoke questions at all. Believe Jesus' plan for his followers, believe Jesus' plan for us as a church is that we would learn to be people that live closely with others so that we can share life with them and live differently enough that that life provokes questions, provokes wonder at God because of the way we live our lives. And that is why we gather in missional communities. That is why we get together in Kairos communities in the week to learn how to live in that way. They are little experimental groups where we can practice living in Jesus' way. And gathering other people is one of the ways that stops us getting stuck with those things. Another thing we've been learning recently is this rhythm. And those of you who follow the emails that I've been sending out, Helen and I have been writing and sending out, will recognize some of this quite clearly. We have been learning that it's really useful to have some practices that you can try, some things you can do when you get stuck. And to remind ourselves that all of this is a gift of God, and all of this is an outworking of the fact that he loves us and he invites us to rest in him and he gives us a place in his family. We've named these rhythms after the word grace. Just going to go through them really quickly. There was more info about them on our website and in the emails that I've been sending out to you. But just going to go through them really quickly now. The first is generous blessing. We, as we follow Jesus, try to be people who look for ways to make other folks' lives better. We practice generosity and blessing in ways that rely on God's generosity. So that might be, even though you're tired, even though you're busy, making space to ask someone else if they need something from the shops. It might be giving financially. It might be a practical way of blessing people in your neighbourhood or community, and it stirs up interest. Earlier at the start of lockdown, I did a really simple kind of local thing to try and do a bit of generous blessing around our street. And what I got back from people was messages where they really clearly said, they used these exact words: "We've noticed what you've done. Thank you." When we choose to bless others and practice generosity, it's noticed, and it prompts a response in people. Why are they living like that? Our second rhythm is receiving and releasing God's blessing. Our generosity isn't just physical, it isn't just stuff. We're generous with the connection with God we have as well. And so we learn to be people that breathe in His Holy Spirit and breathe it out again with blessing and healing. And the real practical outworking of this, the real simple way of stepping into this one, is simply to pray for and with your friends. It's a way of involving others in your spiritual life with God, receiving and releasing His Holy Spirit, praying for practical needs for healing, for the day-to-day stuff of their situations. We are people who ask questions and tell stories. We learn how to really pay attention to others, to listen, to build relationships where people can be open with us. And we make ourselves ready to be able to offer our story as a signpost to God, to be able to explain simply why we're still Christians, and to be able to say something about the current work of God in our lives today. We celebrate together. Celebrating simply about finding ways to publicly mark what's going on inside of us. So actually at this time, celebrating might look for many of us like mourning or grieving or allowing other people to say how they really feel, marking what's happening. But we also celebrate the joy and the future hope that we have. And we look for ways to share that with others. So good parties and times where we tell our story and practicing being thankful about things and inviting people to tell us what's good in their life and spotting what's good about them and naming it as a gift of God. These are ways of celebrating what God's doing among us. And we eat together. Tricky in lockdown for some of us, I know, although I know of some communities that have been trying Zoom eating, which has gone okay, I think. But we recognise that that so much of Jesus' life happened around the meal table. And so we eat with people who we want to get to know. And we use our eating to build relationship with people. You eat 21 meals a week, most of you. How could you spend one or two of them with someone who's different to you, with someone who isn't yet a Christian, with someone you could build relationship with? Now, these aren't the be-all and end-all of following Jesus. There's plenty of other ways to practice distinctiveness, but they do help us keep our focus on the mission of sharing God's love with others. They keep us focused on being people who are outward moving, who are participating in God's work, and they help us get unstuck if we're not sure how to get going with mission again or take it to the next step. So as I leave that up now, I'm going to read the passage from the Message version of Matthew again, and then ask two quick questions before Helen's going to give us a challenge. Hear the words of Jesus. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. Where have you got stuck in terms of living for other people and being a good news person, a source of grace in a time of crisis? How could you unstick yourself and move forward? Maybe join a Kairos community. Maybe choose to practice one of these patterns. How could you, at this point in lockdown, learn to embrace Jesus' unforced rhythms of grace?
So as it's Community Sunday, we just want to leave a little challenge for communities and maybe your household based on that. And the challenge is this: what could you do as a community or as a household that is linked to the rhythms of grace, either in a group of 6 outside or 2 households indoors, or, you know, as things change, how could we make the most of the ways that we're allowed to gather and the opportunities we have to do things together? What creative but simple things, let's not make stuff complicated, what creative things can we do to bless others, to pray for others, to tell some stories, to celebrate together, and even to eat? I'm going to share just a few examples of things that I've heard other people are doing from elsewhere. This is like a generous blessing one for me. I met up with a friend and her kids in the park, but they wouldn't have been able to sit still at a distance for any length of time. So we all, reluctant adults included, played an adapted game of What's the Time, Mr. Wolf? And then a mammoth follow the lead around the park while the adults chatted. That's a way of blessing someone with small children there. One church has had a prayer cross outside its doors during the whole of lockdown, which is basically a prayer station that's been used quite a bit in an area that lots of people would have walked past every day. Receive and release. Another friend said, I've been doing an online women's social with People of Peace, where we watch a film or a documentary and discuss it. It's a bit easier than reading a book, she says, and they're thinking of moving that to a meeting in the park or someone's garden, back garden, if the weather's nice. Another receive and release. We're doing church on our street every Sunday, and one lady has now joined the Alpha course. We've had about 20 to 25 different people join in over lockdown. Another similar one missional community is singing worship songs and praying in a park every Sunday morning. Other groups have done prayer walk relays from one house to another. Other people have done prayer trees outside their house. Lots of creative ways of praying and looking for where God is doing something in people. Here's an eat one. We run a happy hour on Friday night with people on our street, 5 till 6 p.m. and it's bring your own. It's also socially distant, but we've met loads of neighbours. If the weather is good, then we gather. Lots of connections already. So that's a way of just building that sense of community on the street. You know, and I know some of us have been doing some fun stuff as well. Here's a picture of the gazebo that we've put up in our garden. We call it the Friendship Pod of Happiness, or FROD for short. That's Bethan and one of her friends having a meet up there. I know that KFC have done some similar things, having garden conversations with people from Fairfax. Here's a photo of a couple of benches which Connect community installed outside Westcliff Hall this very week, on a very hot day. And there you can see they're socially distant enough. Adam and Ben did measure with the tape measure, and you can see some lovely pots of plants that Rachel put together for us. And there's a sign that is next to them that says, "We believe in community, in building community. We've installed these benches for the community to use to have a socially distanced meetup with a friend, neighbour or family member. Please enjoy the space. So there's now a nice little spot outside West Clifford where people can meet up. You are very welcome to make use of it to meet up with somebody. It's a nice space. You get a couple of people on each bench, somebody sat on the wall. It's great. Various of you have been doing prayer walks in different ways, which is a receive and release thing, isn't it? This is, you probably can't quite see, but there's Nigel on one side and Adam on the other side doing a prayer walk around the Westcliff area. Obviously we know Kendall, you've been doing prayer walks, other people. We've heard about some eating together stuff, some beer and Zoom I think has been happening, or beer and barbecue, or brunches, or cuppers in the garden, or maybe we could do picnics on the Stray in smaller groups. One other thing, some of us have been thinking about ways we can connect with the toddler group families, since it's likely to be quite a while before we can start toddler group running up again. You know, thinking about organising some sort of trail around the Coldbath Road area. You know, could there be mileage in an outdoor book group, or even a small alpha course, either outdoors or you know, two households indoors? That would definitely work. We've done those sorts of things, but it's just been two kind of households together before. I know that personally it feels as though, you know, we've just got used to one way of living in lockdown, and then things are changing, and it's really tiring trying to think of the ways we have to adapt. So my encouragement with this challenge is think about what would give you life as an individual, as a family, as a community, and then just try and do that with other people. Don't try and think of anything crazy unless you've got the capacity for that. What would give you life, because that will give other people life too. So here's your challenge. Talk about it as a community. We'd love to hear your ideas. We'd love to hear the stories of what you get up to. We'd love to kind of inspire each other and just see if we can connect with some other people and see what God is doing out there.